Hey, this is Daryl Henry with Insurance for Entrepreneurs, and this video is how to get employment practices liability insurance in Maryland. I'm going to walk you through step by step. I'm going to keep it simple, just the stuff that you need to know. So first off, let's do a quick refresher on what employment practices liability insurance is. If you want a full breakdown, I've got another video you can check out. What is employment practices liability insurance? But just for this video, employment practices liability insurance protects your organization for lawsuits pertaining to wrongful hiring and firing. It can be discrimination, it can be retaliation, failure to promote, but we're dealing with employment related lawsuits. Okay, so the first step in my mind for any process is whether or not you're going to have an agent or you're going to try and do this yourself. I'm always a little biased on this because I am an insurance agent. I think that agents bring a lot of value to the process, but even if you're going to choose an agent, there's a couple different layers here. Most times people want to deal with one agent for all of their property and casualty insurance. So in some ways, you're trying to hash out whether or not you've got the right agent to help you with your business. And even if you're trusting one agent, you also kind of want to know if they're doing the right stuff. So even then, it's still helpful to know what's the process for how to buy it so you can double check to make sure they're doing a good job. And even if you don't use an agent, you decide to buy online, then really it's very helpful to know how to buy employment practices liability insurance. So step one, if you're going to buy it yourself, is you have to know what do you need. You're going to have to dig into what the coverage limits are. You're going to have to know if there's any add-ons. Like with employment practices liability insurance, you're going to be looking at different things like workplace violence, third-party acts. So that is coverage in the event that somebody outside the organization is saying, hey, your employee was either harassing me, got a little bit handsy. So some examples might be like a home care aide is accused of sexually harassing somebody in in the house, or a plumber or an electrician. Basically, anytime you go into someone's personal space, that person is at risk of being accused of discriminating or sexually harassing one of your clients. So once you determine what you need to start thinking about coverage limits and retentions that you can afford. Do you want $1 million? Do you want 100,000? Do you want $300,000? It kind of comes down to the size of your business, and also, and this is the part that's like very personal for an organization. What's your perception of the risk? Because I can tell you, I can talk to 5 home care agencies with 25 employees and get different answers from all of them about how much employment practices liability insurance they need. Someone's going to say, sell me as much as you can get. Someone's going to say, that's never going to happen to me. Okay, everybody gets to make their own decisions. But once you know what you need and the coverage limits you want, you can start figuring out which company you want to do it with. So this is where you can kind of mix and match and customize. If you want a smaller limit of coverage, sometimes you can add employment practices liability insurance on your BOP policy or your general liability policy. That way you can get a small amount. You can basically get a starter package. It's cheaper, smaller limits, easier to buy. But if you want a full-blown policy with more benefits, you're going to have to go to a company that's got a standalone vertical for employment practices liability insurance. There are some companies that have underwriting departments strictly for this line of coverage. And if you want $1 million, and if you want a company that can help you with things like handbooks and keeping up with state laws and all that great kind of stuff and consultations with attorneys, you're going to need to choose a company that can do that for you. So once you've figured out what you need, coverage limits, and the company you want to go with, and you've completed the paperwork, you're ready to bind the policy. You're going to need to complete the paperwork, fill out all the underwriting questions. They're going to want to know about all your HR practices and number of employees so that they can get a feel on how likely it is that you're going to get sued. And then you're going to sign that paperwork, you're going to submit payment, and then they're going to send you proof of coverage. Great. You got it. That's everything. And if you're looking for help, you want someone to help walk you through that process, you want to talk to me about it, my contact information is at insuranceforontrepreneurs.net. If this was helpful, please hit like and subscribe. It helps other people like you find the content. And as always, Thank you so much for watching. Go build something great.